Hey there, folks. So welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And it is my 4-year anniversary on YouTube doing these reviews. Thank you all for your support and the album that you want me to cover from 2016, Stoney by Post Malone. I would say that I'm surprised about this, but the truth is that I'm not. When it comes to YouTube, after all, if you say you're not gonna do something, as I did, and then you give an option to the fans, like I did, you all will take the opportunity to watch me suffer. But here's the truth of it. I think any sort of conversation surrounding Post Malone that I'm having right now is very different than if I had reviewed his debut several months ago, because his position has kind of evolved with regards to popular culture. He's not entirely the guy that seems tailor-made by record executives to capitalize on mumble rap with a white artist, but instead more of a character who can accept some jokes and criticism with decent humor, and shows up on a podcast with H3 Productions. It's led to a bit of a weird situation, and something that I've noticed with a lot of white rappers. They either try to go really hard with real hip-hop credibility to better or worse results, or, like Post Malone, they like to cash in with dumb party rap that's so disposable that the punchline for this guy's career has already been written. And while there's a part of me that feels like it's a little bit twisted and wrong and says a lot about hip-hop audiences, particularly white hip-hop audiences, that black artists making more lyrical or interesting or relevant music, or even other mumble rappers in that lane, have been ignored in favor of somebody appropriating that style that they can relate to because they're often white as well. I'm also very much aware that Post Malone, he's got a shelf life. There's no real point in getting that angry about him. He's not going to start a trend. Frankly, I'm surprised that he's had as much success into 2017 as he has, especially with Congratulations now being a top 10 hit for some reason. Now, all of that being said, while the cultural apparatus and impact of Post Malone is kind of fascinating, his music really isn't. To put it bluntly, while White Iverson is terrible and definitely deserves a spot on my worst hits of 2016, what made it all the more exasperating is how boring and lifeless it felt, combining the worthless tedium of a Jack Johnson song with the shallow monotony of so much mumble rap that I've heard thus far before. And let's be brutally honest, Congratulations, it's not much better. In short, there was a very real reason why I did not want to cover Stoney. I didn't think it would make an entertaining review, but you all insisted, so now, beating out all other possible options like King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, or Flume, or Sabrina Carpenter by nearly a 2-to-1 ratio, I'm reviewing this. So what do we get? Well, I got pretty much exactly what I expected, and pretty much what you all would expect me covering this album too. Hell, it's not like when I covered Paramore's self-titled album where I had an extended and complicated history with the band to be explained along with my ambivalence towards the record, or how Isaiah Rashad and Borns' albums were respectively great and then solid, which tended to match a lot of the critical consensus. This, look, it's not like Post Malone is an artist with unexplored dimensions or complexity. His success has been entirely reliant on a very easygoing, smoky, bass-heavy vibe. And while there are moments on Stoney where it's almost tolerable, it's still 50 minutes of Post Malone's nasal braying, bad singing, sloppy wordplay, and dreary personality. And that's providing the production actually comes together. Yeah, that was the one thing I did not expect going into Stoney, how rarely the production actually managed to work for me. If I'm gonna give Post Malone credit for anything at all, and that's a stretch, I was expecting to say that at least some of the sandy, desaturated blurs the sound could produce some intoxicating depth, there would be something to it, but in reality, this record wishes it could have that level of consistent composure and atmosphere, and this is a mixing problem, first and foremost. If you're gonna place the majority of your funereal, downbeat melodies midway to the back of the mix, where they just can keen and fill up space, often way colder and more synth-driven than you would otherwise expect given what you would hear from White Iverson, maybe it's not a good idea to put your percussion and especially your bass beats right at the very front where they sound way too clean and at some points alarmingly cheap to match up with the rest of your production. It just completely snaps me out of the atmosphere and really does not feel all that cohesive. It doesn't feel intoxicating. An obvious play for clubs and trunk-knocking speakers. The most immediate and grating example is Deja Vu. I've already talked about it on Billboard Breakdown, with a god-awful, ugly, watery processing around the hi-hats that shows up again to just tick and grate even further on feel, but with that drippy bass warbles on Cold, the blubbery beat and chipmunk squeals around I Fall Apart, or the very generic trap clunkers of Patient and Too Young, they just feel mixed in a way that compromises a lot of that vibe. On the flip side, then you get cases like where they go overboard trying for that atmosphere like the opener, Broken Whiskey Glass, which is trying for some sort of ramshackle western tone with the strings and the guitar and the reverb that's drowning pretty much everything out with a huge bassy knock to it. and as soon as you pile on the pitched on vocals, it sounds like it's flattened and a clunky mess. This sort of smoky sound Miranda Lambert did better last year too. Now, it's not saying that there aren't some points where the vocal multi-tracking kind of works for me. The acoustic Go Flex, it's not bad in that regard. It's got a solid hook to it. Congratulations with Quavo. It does get a little bit of buzzy smolder to it that I can kind of respect, and I didn't mind Pharrell's hazy main guitar line on Up There. But when you have a song like I Fall Apart, for instance, where the vocal production falls away, it's a little bit thinner, puts Post Malone more to the front, yeah, no way around this. I've got issues with Post Malone as a rapper that we're gonna get to in a second, but I have a much bigger issue with him as a singer. A song like I Fall Apart expects him to pull on his best vibrato The Weeknd impression against Ilangelo's production and sound more impassioned and soulful, and look, I don't buy it. Not for a second. Every moment he tries to strain for more emotion, he sounds like he's passing a kidney stone. And that's when he's actually trying. More often than not, this record just falls into dreary, auto-tune soaked moaning that barely stays on key, has little actual diction to it, and just sounds like Post Malone could hardly care about what he's rapping or borderline singing about. Which here is less impressive and more lazy. You need charisma to pull off this sort of vibe. Justin Bieber might be something of an inert presence on Deja Vu, but he at least sounds a little bit engaged, and Kalani at least gets the subtle presence and emotional intensity of these sorts of grooves that can pull you in on feel, a level of control that Post Malone just cannot bring to the table on that song. But what becomes more of an issue is when you consider the content and the overall mood of these songs. And yes, that ties into the lyrics, and yes, I'm gonna talk about them. Now look, I don't have that many complimentary things to say about mumble rapper and artists like, say, Future. Pretty much ever, I'm not a fan. But when he's most tolerable for me is when he can match his dark, smoldering beats and grooves with the angry nihilism that ran through a lot of his writing. Even at his most hedonistic and asshole-ish, there was something kind of potent in the wallow and completely bad taste. Post Malone, he doesn't remotely come close to that sort of lyrical cohesion, which is only really noticeable when he's just rattling through interchangeable flexing bars, abusing drugs and brand names, but when he starts going in on about women in any capacity, it really starts to get obnoxious for me. Again, I've already talked about Deja Vu and how Justin Bieber and Post Malone epically missed the point, but does he honestly think on a song like Cold that all of his jewelry flexing is gonna be what this girl's gonna want to hear in his incredibly needy and whiny verse, especially when he can't seem to decide whether or not he wants her around at all? Or take I Fall Apart, the big breakup ballad where he's calling the girl a devil in the form of a whore, where he's falling into a drunken mess and keeps referencing all the jewelry he bought her as if that's the most important thing. And if he's expecting me to feel sorry for him here, it's not coming through at all. He's not pulling this off, especially when it seems like on Go Flex, it seems inevitable that this guy's gonna cheat on any girlfriend he might have. At least Kalani seems to kind of get it and manufacture a certain amount of clinical distance from this guy, just enjoy the physical experience and not really expect anything else. But Post Malone doesn't have the subtlety or can really pull this off, which can make for quite the tonal dissonance when you have songs where he's running through brag rap that's followed up by songs like Up There, where he's saying that it's such hell on earth for him and his girl doesn't love him and he's trying to act like nothing phases him when he's all front man. Even on the very next song, closing track, he's back to rattling off brand names and referencing his own hit White Iverson again. What it highlights is the sort of insipid angst that I've got limited tolerance for when Future or other mumble rappers deliver it. But without getting personal or all that more political, Post Malone, he can't even get that deep. And really, that's it. That's all we get. A showcase of droning tedium that clearly shows some kind of angst, but it's got no real problems to really whine about. We just get a tonally dissonant mess from a frontman who has even less to say than your average mumble rapper. Sure, there are a few beats that have a little bit of presence, but with very languid tempos, no real sense of momentum beyond a few quick flows that feel utterly barren of interesting punchlines or character, really kind of pedestrian when you think about it. It shows an artist who makes party music for spoiled rich LA brats who are too cold to actually engage with the art beyond shallow flash and parties, and a listening public who just wants to be like them. And I think I grew out of that phase personally a good 6 or 7 years ago, so I've got no use for this record whatsoever. It's a 3 out of 10, no recommendation, and with some luck, when I celebrate an anniversary next year, can we get something better? Please? But in all due seriousness, thanks a lot for watching and supporting me for the past 4 years. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be very, very grateful for this. I gotta be honest, I've been giving this channel a lot of thoughts on where I'm going to take it in the next little while. It's kind of good that I did talk about Post Malone here. I kind of needed to get this guy out of my system for some significant portion. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about the format of what I have here. I've been nearly doing this for 1,000 episodes. I'd like to see if I could do something a little bit different, a little something more that I'll be experimenting with over pretty much the rest of the summer. I'm still thinking about how it's going to come together, but rest assured that there is going to be some change coming. Beyond that, if you guys actually want to buy the album, I can't imagine why you would. The link's in the description below, and I got the poll up there for all you to tell me how wrong I am, because I know this guy's got a fan base, and good for you, I guess. It's just not for me at all. And beyond that, if you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process, link to my Patreon is right there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on this schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you get to add records or even movies to that schedule. And I gotta thank you guys for all your support there as well. It's really made this something of a sustainable opportunity. Can't quit my job, but I can actually do these reviews and see a fairly decent return out of it, and I do appreciate that, I really do. Beyond that, thanks a lot for all these past 4 years. See if we can get another 4 more. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.